Hi there, Pedro from KEPTI Fishing, and welcome back to the channel. And in this video, we did something different. And last time we did it, you guys really liked this video. So, a little story behind it is that I was invited to do a seminar at the New Jersey Boat Sailing Expo in Edison, New Jersey. And we went over there talking about my favorite species to target, which is blackfish, tautog, or tog. So in this seminar, I was talking about getting started into blackfish fishing, introducing and teaching beginners on the right spots and the right areas to target blackfish, one of my favorite fish to target. So in this seminar, this was another seminar talking in depth the spots, the current breaks, fishing on the boat, fishing from shore, fishing on jetties, fishing on piers. So this is the seminar for you if you're looking to do that. I want to thank you guys for all the support that you've been giving us. Please like, comment, share to your family, friends, and subscribe. Like I said, all the support from newcomers and subscribers that have been following us over the years in the channel. We want to thank you guys so much. Without further ado, hopefully you like this video and hopefully you enjoyed the seminar. See you there and see you out on the water. These fish. And people say that blackfish, it's a very hard fish to target. And sometimes it can be, but my goal is to, with what I'm going to be teaching today, is make it simpler and make it easier. Finding the right spots, the right bait, and the right gear and tackle. As well as I'm going to be showing a series of videos as key examples of the different topics that I'm going to be talking about. So I just want to thank everybody that's here, and let's get started. Yeah, go ahead. Where we
Before we begin, you must check your drag.
Good. All right, grab the rod and drop it straight down. You're on the bottom. There you go, close it. Reel in, there you go, you're good. Now don't move it, just keep it as still as you possibly can. You feel a big bite, set the hook as hard as you can. That was a big bite. Wait. That was a really good bite. Everything correct? Here, I got it. See if I can find that.
That was a big bite.
Yeah, it was.
I'm surprised you didn't take the crab.
So sometimes go like this and get a better hook set, okay?
Got it.
So like stand back and have one rod at the butt, yeah. So when you set the hook, boom. Be ready, okay? If not, you can hold it normally.
Yeah, I feel more calm.
Yeah,
like on the boat, on fluke fishing, it's different, but still.
There. Be ready, okay?
I got it.
I know.
Oh.
Oh. Whoa. Almost. Oh, that was a good one. Set. Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go.
Reel.
Come on, Ellie.
Reel.
Let's go.
Let's go. You did that one all by yourself. Hold it. We're going to take a good picture of that one.
Oh.
Hey, you did an awesome job, Ellie. You did an awesome job. So that fish was actually my sister's first ever blackfish. And what I like is I like teaching her how to catch specific fish. And this specific day we were out fishing in a Point Pleasant canal. And so we were fishing in the Point Pleasant canal and we brought her out trying to get her on her first blackfish. And brought her out. It was a beautiful day. There was some current. But I was just being patient. I was teaching her the right method, where to cast, where to drop, and what bait to use, and when to set the hook. So I want to talk about the rod, the reel, and the tackle that she was using, the tackle that I use mostly from shore and off the boat. So the rod that she was using here, this is a Tsunami slow pitch. This is the Trophy series, the Tsunami slow pitch. This is 6'6". This is a medium heavy with a 2000 vig. Now this is an amazing rod for young anglers like my sister, but also it's a really great rod for blackfish. It doesn't matter if it's on a boat or from shore. The reel is also really nice. It has a lot of power, so when you're reeling in, you can get these blackfish off the bottom and you can get it on top. Now, the rig that she was using, this is one of my favorite rigs to put on and also to put on to my sister. Now, here we have 20-pound test braid. I like fishing 20 to 30-pound test braid, a uni to uni knot with 30-pound test leader. Now, I like using 30-pound test leader because it has more power and it's stronger. In case if you get stuck in a rock, you can have a better chance of breaking it off. I don't really like using 15 or 20-pound test because it's very easy to break off. The rig here, this is a very, very simple rig to use, right? This is just a dropper loop, right? So you have a dropper loop connected to your hook. This is a Tsunami SaltX 3.0. I like using 3.0 hooks. It's a little bigger. You can get a much better action. You can actually hook the fish a little better. 2.0 sometimes if I'm using smaller baits, which I'll get into that, but I like using a 3.0. Then on the bottom, I have a surgeon's loop. A surgeon's loop would connect to my weight. I like using a 2 ounce to 3 ounce weight. Sometimes if the current's strong, I'll put on a heavier weight, but 2 ounce to 3 ounce is just the perfect weight. Now, when she was fishing in the canal, I know in the video, there was a current break. That's where we were fishing. It's called an eddy. Now, in the eddy, that's where the blackfish are going to congregate. Right there when the current is ripping out, it was an outgoing tide, the blackfish are going to find different pools, just like eddies. So we put her in that same exact spot with an eddy using a cut green crab. Now with the cut green crab, we drop it straight down right next to the seawall because there's a bunch of rocks along the seawall. So we would drop straight down in that eddy, and that's where these blackfish would actually come and bite. Sometimes it's tricky. At first she actually missed one, but you just gotta be patient. You gotta work with them especially. You gotta say, yep, that's when you set the hook, and that's when you get the fish, and that's when they're successful. Now, with the proper bait, how do you put on the bait? Since I was saying she was using a cut green crab, cut right in half, sometimes the blackfish are very picky. You could say you want a sandwich, but without peanut butter or the jelly, just want the bread. So the way that this specific day, they were wanting the crab cut right in half with no legs and hooked from the arm socket to the leg socket. That's how these blackfish were biting. We would try a small cut whole crab, clams sometimes, even sand fleas really work, but just specific days like the current or how dirty the water is or how high the water is, it really comes down to how the conditions are with the different baits that you're going to be using. So like I said, she was using a green crab. Sometimes you can use an Asian crab, which is an invasive species of crab. You can use sand fleas. Sand fleas are very common. They're very easy to use. You can get them at a bait store, or you can go to your local beach, use a sand flea rake, and get them there. They're very effective baits. And sometimes the blackfish would only want sand fleas, not any other crabs, just that. Sometimes clams too. Clams are very effective. You can get them, like I said, in a local tackle shop. They're super easy to get, super easy to rig, and clams are my favorite, honestly, because it's a harder bait. So you wrap it around the hook a few times, and it's actually, you get more fish with the same clam than a crab, which the crab bite it, and it's gone. So those are my favorite baits, and that's the tackle that she was using for that specific day with the eddies and in the canal. I'm gonna use smaller crabs, but you want to use the one, ooh. These little ones are perfect. For the jigs right now, these tiny little ones are perfect. Perfect little prime little weights. You know what I found, Chris? What? 2 hermits.
Good luck getting them open. Like, throw it.
Throw it?
Yeah.
You told me to throw it.
Yeah.
Put him on the jig. How did I put him? I don't know how to hook these.
Hermit crabs?
Yeah, I don't use those. I know they're good for tog, but I've never used them.
Yeah. Put it like a worm.
Oh.
And then for backup, let's put 2 hooks on.
Nice.
Not with 2 hooks, you can't, you know? Put them down there.
Oh my God.
Let's go.
Oh God.
Hey, cool it. Just let it go. Good, he's up off the bottom.
I hope so. Woo. On the hermit crab. Let's go.
Hell yeah.
All right, so with this catch, this was actually one of my favorite catches. That was my biggest blackfish of the year. And how many, anybody has a boat here? You got a boat? How many of you guys fish off a boat for blackfish? All right. So with this day, I was fishing on a party boat out of Rion, New Jersey. It's called Jamaica 2. And another key bait with fishing on a boat is called the white crab. White crabs are very key. They're candy for blackfish, especially more on the inshore and offshore grounds. Now, I found a hermit crab. That's why I said, ooh. With the hermit crab, that's another great bait for blackfish. From shore, boat, jetties, piers, that's an amazing bait for blackfish. They're a little hard to get, and they're a little hard to open. But if you can get one, an open one, and put it on a rig, I recommend the dropper loop rig, or on a blackfish jig like I have here. So the rod I have here, this is a custom rod that I built. This is a Tsunami SaltX 2 7.2 inshore rod. This is medium action. And the reel, this is a Tsunami SaltX 2 3000 reel. So this is the setup that I use for jig fishing. And here I have a little Tsunami, there you go. So I got a Tsunami Tautog tree. This is one of my favorite jigs to use for blackfish. And the reason is that it's a flat jig. So if you're picking out a blackfish jig, especially if you're using from shore or on a boat, what you want is the jig to lay flat on the bottom, right? So the jig is gonna lay directly flat on the bottom, and you don't want a jig that moves around too much. You wanna keep your rod as still as possible, especially for blackfish. Blackfish don't want it jigging like you're jigging for flounder or fluke, or reeling it in like a striper. They're bottom fish, so they want it right on the bottom. This comes for a rig and a jig. And the tog treat is flat, so it stays flat on the bottom, it doesn't move, and I've caught a lot of big fish with this jig. Now, with the line, right, I have 20-pound test braid. This is Power Pro Super Slick, and this is 30-pound leader. I like using 30-pound leader. Lighter line and lighter leader helps me feel the blackfish jig. What I like personally is using the lightest blackfish jig that I can possibly can. With that specific day, I was only using an ounce blackfish jig, and we were fishing in 80 feet of water, right? If I could use and get away an ounce blackfish jig, I can and I will catch more fish than rig fishermen do, right? Some rig guys are using 3 to 4 ounces. Me, if you can use a 3-ounce weight or a 2-ounce weight with your rig, switch to a blackfish jig. Because with the current, they're going to go for a smaller profile, not that much line, not that many hooks. A jig is a simple profile, specific days, not that much current. And again, I was fishing in an eddy. So sometimes on the boat, you're anchored up on the boat, the current will sway and make like a circle. That's where the blackfish are going to be sitting at, and that's where most of the crabs are going to congregate. Like I said, the current is going to stop the crabs from moving down or up current. They're going to be able to stay more on the wreck that you're fishing, and that's where the blackfish are going to be. Little pockets, little holes that in the current, and sometimes in the structure too. If you find a current break, right, like an eddy, and you find a hole in the structure that you're fishing, like a shipwreck or a rocky bottom, that hole right there is most likely going to have a big blackfish. I've come with these days where there's a bunch of current and I can't find a bite. I move around the boat and I find a hole. I found an eddy and I found big structure. I drop a jig with either a green crab or a white crab. If I can find a hermit crab, I'll drop that too. And I catch big blackfish, sometimes 3, 4, even 7 pounds, all on a light setup. This is my favorite rod to use. It's light, it's sensitive, parabolic, and it's just an amazing rod to use, specifically off a boat and from the shore. It's one of my favorite rods to use. Now, the seasonal movements, the best times to fish. The best times to fish for blackfish, especially from the shore or from the boat. We get an open season from April 1st to April 30th. That's when you can target blackfish. And in the spring, you're going to be using either green crabs or clams. Doesn't matter if you're on a boat, if you're from a rocky shoreline like a jetty or a pier, that's how you're going to get these blackfish in the spring with clams and crabs. They've been in a winter hiatus all February and March. So the teeth are going to be soft. So they're going to be going with clams. Like I said, you can put some clam, yeah?
I think bloodworms too.
And bloodworms too. Bloodworms, worms like sandworms and bloodworms, they're very good. They're easier to get, easier to put on the hook. So they're very easy to get and put on the hook, and the blackfish love them. You can put it on a blackfish jig, or you can put it on a blackfish rig, like the dropper loop. The dropper loop is my favorite rig to use. So those are the best times. April, and then on August 1st, it opens up to one fish through the summer until November 16th. That's when the blackfish are very active. You can use any bait, clam, bloodworm, sandworm, green crab, Asian crab, fiddler crab, sand fleas, anything that you can get your hands on, these blackfish will eat. And August 1st to November 16th, you can keep one. After that, you can keep 5 fish. That's when you go on a boat. It doesn't matter if it's a party boat or private boat. That's the best time you can keep more fish, and that's when the bigger fish start going off to the offshore wrecks. So that's when you start using white crab, green crab, sometimes fiddler crabs, and mud crabs, also hermit crabs, are awesome baits. That's when I use a different type of rig as well as a blackfish jig. Now, with the blackfish jig rod, right? Another rod that I use specifically during that time is a rig rod, mostly off a boat, sometimes off of shore. This is a Tsunami slow pitch, 7-foot extra heavy. Now this rod is an amazing blackfish rod, especially for young anglers. Doesn't matter what age, this is an amazing rod. Super light and super, super strong, right? The reel I have is called the Maxell Hybrid 25. This is a 25 size. This one I like using for blackfish because it gives me a lot of power and a lot of torque. But also, a bait casting reel is very nice, like a toadfish reel. It's a super nice reel, super smooth, and again, it has a lot of power. Now, off the boat, I like using a different type of rig. This is called the Belmar rig. Now, the Belmar rig consists of a big loop and a piece of leader line. So I have a loop here connecting my weight, and my weight is here on top, my hook's on the bottom. Sometimes I like doing one hook or 2 hooks. It's called the slider rig. So it's one fixed hook and a hook that's sliding down. This 2-hooked rig helps me get 2 hooks in a crab. It lets me fish bigger pieces of crab, like a small whole crab or a big half of a crab. That's what the blackfish are gonna want, the bigger blackfish especially. Sometimes smaller pieces and bigger pieces, that's what they're gonna want. So that's why I use a slider rig. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. There you go. Oh. Get some problems here. There you go.
Why is that pausing?
We got some problems. Let's see.
Having some technical difficulties here.
Come on, Pedro.
There you go. Ah, come on. Alright. We'll skip that one. There you go.
That's what I'm saying. Why change it?
No, yeah. Might just mess it up too.
Yeah, it might mess it up.
You want net?
I think so.
Net?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Nice. Oh,
Yeah! Let's go!
Look at the muff.
holy shit.
That's a pulling
Nice fish.
That's double digit, isn't it?
That's a double digit!
Yeah, I think so. No, it might be 8.
That was the one that got away.
That's a nice fish. 4 and 8.
Now that fish, that was one of my favorite catches. Actually, my dad actually caught that fish. That was a fish in April. Now that is a 10.5-pound blackfish that we caught on a blackfish jig. Now, with that jig, again, on an eddy, there's a current break very far. It was a big, big pocket. He found a hole in the structure, dropped down in that hole, and that fish was just waiting there. Now, the way he caught it, right, he was using a blackfish jig, but with another hook. It's called a stinger hook. So it's a hook that you tie to the blackfish jig, and about 6 inches, I would say, with another tied hook. Now, if you can't fish a rig, if it's the current's so slow that you can't fish a rig and you want to fish 2 hooks, that is the rig that you want to go, a stinger hook. Again, the same benefits with a rig. You could use a whole crab, bigger half a piece of crab, and you could fish in lighter current, and you'll have sometimes even better results. So the rod I have here, this is a Tsunami Slim Wave. This is a 7-foot medium heavy, right? This is 1/2 ounce to 2.5 ounces, and this rod is one of my favorite rods. It's a great rod for young beginners, intermediate and advanced fishermen. It's just an awesome rod. This is the 2000 Vict. This is the same size as the reel I was talking before. Here I have 20-pound test braid to, again, 30-pound test leader, and I'm using a uni to uni knot. This is my favorite blackfish fishing combo. Whenever I'm going out to talk fishing, I always bring this rod as a backup, or sometimes even my main rod. If I'm going off a jetty, if I'm going off a pier, if I'm going off a boat, this is the rod that does it all with the blackfish jig. And sometimes, too, it has enough backbone and it can hold weight. So you could put a dropper loop fishing in a jetty or fishing off a boat. If you're bored of fishing a blackfish jig and the current starts picking up a little bit, you could switch and you could put a rig on this one. It's just an amazing rod to do. And for that fish, he actually caught it on shrimp. Shrimp is another great bait for blackfish in the spring. It's soft, it's sweet, and it gives out a good scent in the water. So that's another bait. If you get your hands on, that's a great bait to use, shrimp. Now I want to talk the best way to hold bottom, either a rig or a jig. With the rig, the best way to hold bottom is to put on a good weight. You want to put on not a 3 ounce, if you're fishing off a boat, you want to put on a 6 ounce to an 8 ounce weight. All depends on current. Current is key. If the current is too high or too strong, I would put an 8 ounce, sometimes even a 10 ounce if the current's too strong. But if it's slow enough, I can get away with like a 4 ounce, a 5 ounce, or a 6 ounce weight with the rig. With the jig, again, it all comes down to current, specifically for a blackfish jig. Like I said before, a blackfish jig, you want it to keep it on the bottom. You don't want it to move. So, with a blackfish jig, this is an 1.5 ounce jig. On the boat, it's going to lie flat on the bottom, right? If it starts to sway, and you can feel it, you want a sensitive rod like the Slim Wave or a SaltX rod or a slow pitch. You want it very sensitive so you can detect the bite and you can feel your jig sway. So if I start feeling the blackfish jig to sway, I'm going to reel it up immediately and put on a 2 ounce, right? Still light enough so I could fish and still effective. If it starts to sway, I'm going to say no, I'm going to go to my rig. That's how you want to hold bottom. My 3 favorite weights, ounce, 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce, right? Those are my 3 favorite weights to use for the blackfish on a boat. From the shore, you want to go a little lighter. The reason you want to go lighter is you want the blackfish to take it. When you're fishing and using a blackfish jig, everything needs to be finessed. So, when I'm using a blackfish jig, I use a light rod, a strong rod, some light line, 20-pound test, 30-pound test leader. There, I could feel the blackfish bite, and I could feel the jig as well. And if I don't have any bait, I reel it up, and I'll move it. If the blackfish jig is lighter, that means I got no bait. So I'm going to reel up, change my bait, and put it back down there. And to recognize a blackfish bite, right? The best way to recognize a blackfish bite, it depends. There's 2 different ways. I'm going to start off with the blackfish jig. To detect a bite for a blackfish jig, you want to let it sit on the bottom. And when you're blackfish fishing, you'll get other bycatches, such as brigals, small sea bass, small tautog. So you get a lot of bycatches. But to detect that perfect blackfish bite, you want to let your blackfish jig sway on the bottom. I'm going to come right here. So I'm going to let the blackfish jig sway on the bottom, right? It's flat on the bottom. And I'm going to feel the bite. It's going to go tap, 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 tap. I don't want to set the hook on that. Especially for many starting anglers, such as young anglers and starting out for blackfish, they're going to set the hook immediately as soon as you're going to get those small bites. That's not what you want to do. You're on the bottom and you feel those taps. That's not a blackfish. It's probably smaller blackfish, brigals, sea bass, such as that. To detect the big blackfish, you're going to feel 1 hit, 2 hits, like big hits, and then you're going to feel it going away. That means the blackfish picked up that jig and took it somewhere else to eat on the bottom. Because down there on the bottom, it's very competitive. There's a lot of small fish, porgy, sea bass, brigals, smaller blackfish. So blackfish want to eat a piece. So that's their natural nature to do. Pick up the blackfish jig and go somewhere else to eat. I give it a few seconds, like about 2 seconds, and then I set the hook as hard as I can to get the jig right in the corner of the mouth. As you can see in the picture, the lips are very thick in the blackfish, so I want to set the hook as hard as I can. And with a rod that allows you to do that, has a super soft tip, super parabolic tip, but it shuts down and has a lot of backbone. So you can get a very sturdy hook set with the blackfish jig. Now with the rig, it's much simpler to do. If you're bringing out a beginner, a newly getting into fishing and wants to go blackfish fishing, right? Or a young angler, you want to put them on a rig. The rig is the simplest way to catch blackfish for a beginner. Very easy to detect the bite. So you're sitting there on the bottom, keep it perfectly still. You're feeling those smaller bites, right? That's the smaller fish. But with the rig, you're gonna feel the boom, boom, bigger hits, and then you're gonna feel, if you keep feeling those bigger hits, that's a blackfish, and you set the hook as hard as you can. That's much, much simpler than jig fishing. You have to wait, you gotta be very patient. For blackfish, you have to be super patient. So that's why with the rig, I always recommend if you're bringing out someone new to blackfish fishing or a young angler, always put them on a rig. Super simple to do, and that's how they start getting the hang of blackfish fishing. Bring them out a few trips later, then you put them on a jig. Jig, you have to have some practice. It took me a while to get my first ever blackfish on a jig, even on a rig. All right, so you gotta be very patient with them. So that's how I detect a bite on a jig and on a rig. Now can you pause right here?
It's gonna be a bit.
Oh, go back. Here, what happened? There you go.
It's gonna be a big one, right? Let him eat. He'll let you know, right?
All right.
He'll let you know. Let him eat. And when you hit him, swing hard, right?
All
Try to
right.
knock his ass out.
Once he really gives that good side, Pedro, I told you. Let him eat, Pedro. Vote for Pedro.
Why does everybody say that now? Vote for Pedro.
It's a movie that you're a little too young to know about. Napoleon Dynamite. It's called Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, God.
Vote for Pedro.
I'll take a nut. I'll take a nut. Yee-hoo.
Pedro!
Oh, gosh.
Go, Pedro. Go, Pedro. Nice. There you go. Good job.
Vote for Pedro.
Good job, Pedro!
Nice, yes.
Good job, brother.
Hey, do you... All right, so that fish was not in New Jersey. That was actually in Rhode Island. That was my first ever time in Rhode Island. And the guy that was actually teaching me, he's called Garrett Weir. He's a very good blackfish fisherman. And I love this key point because you don't want to be closed-minded and listen to me and hear that, all right, I got to do this and I got to do this. I got to grab the blackfish, the right blackfish here. No, you don't want to listen to me some points, but you also want to listen to others, other experienced fishermen. All right, that's how I learned my first time in Rhode Island. He showed me how to put the bait. I was using a white crab. He showed me where to pitch out, and there wasn't no current breaks, no eddies here. No, structure, and that's it. There wasn't that much current. So you had to wait for a little bit until blackfish comes, eats it, takes it away, and that's when you set the hook. So I had to be patient. And he told me where to pitch out, the right piece of crab to use, crush it a little bit, wait a little bit, and wait for that big blackfish to set the hook. As soon as I felt that boom, 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 I set the hook as hard as I can,
and I got my personal best blackfish. That blackfish was 8.5 pounds. That was in Rhode Island. And with this same setup, the rod was a little heavier. It was a 7'6" version, but the same reel. That time I had 30-pound test braid and 50-pound test leader. I like using 30 to 50-pound test leader because it's a little stronger, especially off the boat with all the rocks and different pieces that can cut your line. So that's why I was using 30 to 50 or sometimes even 60 with a slider rig. So the same rig that I have here, whole crab, one side, one hook, the other side hook, and that was my personal best blackfish. So it's just, blackfish fishing is an amazing fishery. I love it. Super simple if you break it down and you have the key features. It's an amazing way to get young anglers and new anglers into fishing. It's when you get really good at it, every day you want to go out for blackfish. It's just an amazing fishery. Please subscribe. We're on YouTube. I want to thank everybody that's here. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on Instagram and Facebook as well. I just want to thank everybody that's here. And that's it, everyone.
Hopefully you enjoyed this seminar. And again, thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. Comment down below what your favorite parts of the seminar were. If you have any questions, please let me know down in the comments section. What's the right bait, the right spots, the right gear, and I'll try to answer your questions the best that I can down in the comment section. But thank you guys so much for clicking this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I said in the beginning, please like, comment, share to your family, friends, and subscribe. But without further ado, make sure you like this video or go watch this video right over here. And hopefully see you guys out on the water. Remember, life is better when you add fish and water. Don't forget to click this video right over here.